the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And we're going to let you hear from Sam Howell in a second on Eric Bieniemy, but there's some days, Anthony, we get in here and I just wonder, are we a professional radio station? Are we a professional outfit? Or do we work in a bleeping zoo?
Could it be all three?
I mean, maybe.
I was joking.
Welcome to Monkey Poop Throw Radio. Because that's what it smells like in here.
Oh, man.
Did you come in here at all?
I did not, and I don't think I want to either.
I don't know what was in Chris Russell's salad, but it smells like farts and old fish.
Oh. That's tough. And you got to sit through that for
I don't know
3
how
hours?
Linnell did the show.
Yeah.
Because immediately, like, Linnell was like, it's him, it's the salad. And Chris is like, I had a salad. And I'm just like, what was in that salad that this studio smells like this? I have sprayed, where is it? Where'd it go? I have sprayed the Home Bright disinfectant spray, country scent, whatever that is. It kills flu virus, and it allegedly eliminates odors. How many times have I sprayed this?
Maybe. I don't think you've ever. Oh, you're talking about today?
Today, in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, you've sprayed.
I did at least 2 rounds.
2.5.
Might as well get a third.
Oh, my.
I also think part of the problem is whatever country scent is doesn't smell very good. Because now it smells like old fish farts and country scent.
Oh. Do you think
Which is like eliminating the odor, but not before it leaves its own odor.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're going to suffer over there, man.
I thought about the problem is like the computer's right here and the camera and all the things that we have for the YouTube stream. So I can't just like pop a mic on and sit over there. I mean, shoot, maybe I should just come in there.
Here?
Just do the show, at least the first segment. Let this joint air out.
Oh, you got to open that door.
I should. Should I just open it right now?
Yeah, I think you should.
All right, hold on.
Yeah. Wow. I feel for Craig, man. I don't have to necessarily worry about that kind of stuff. But, sometimes you got to roll with the punches. And here comes Craig.
I don't know if that's good for the soundproofing. And apparently there's static electricity in my headphones. That's great. So just let that air out. Just
there you go.
Awful. Terrible. No good. And then, to top it all off, one day, Linnell will learn how to clean up after himself.
Oh, what did he leave?
I don't know how hard it is to put the computer back where it belongs.
Ah.
And he gets to use it for the show. I don't begrudge the man for using the resources available in the studio. But, like, we got a short changeover. Help your boy out.
Yeah.
Slide l'ordinateur back around. That was my French.
I was a little lost, but I'm fine.
A little easier in Spanish. I think it's just la computadora.
Yep. You know it.
I do. I still know more Spanish than French, which is a problem because I've been learning French for like a year on Duolingo, one lesson at a time, because I'm just doing enough to keep my streak going and not enough to actually learn French. Oui. Le ordinateur.
Oui.
There you go. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I got registered for a PT class for my hip flexor, but outside of that, I think I'm doing pretty good.
Did you hurt your hip flexor playing football, playing flag?
So, yeah, because I was running, I guess.
Yeah, that hip flexors are involved in running.
It is. I do play a physical brand of flag football, but it didn't come from a hit. It was more so, I think, the fact I don't run a lot during the week, and then me going out there, running 1,000 miles per hour.
Yeah, there's a reason they practice, Anthony.
Yeah.
Do you do any running during the week?
Not really.
Yeah, you should probably do that.
Yeah, that's that. So after,
I think we might have found the problem. I don't know if you're going to go to this PT. I mean, you should go to the PT to get it better, but
yeah. But after I go to PT,
they don't call us Train with the Best for nothing over here. That's our brand. That's the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys travel?
I mean, what are you looking for?
I more so just need an accountability partner. Like,
So
I
when
don't
you
mi-
text me in the morning to talk about the show, I just go, hey, go run some sprints. Do a little lateral shuffling in.
see that doesn't usually work. It's more so like I need someone to work out with me. I used to have a workout partner, but he got hurt. He hurt his Achilles.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, he's been out since July. So since July, I really haven't.
Would you come down to DC and take my our hell classes that Rachel and I take?
So the thing is, I was supposed to do one of these classes. Never really got around.
Whoa. Are we done with the segment?
Did somebody?
You can just pull the fader down, Anthony.
Somebody fired it.
You didn't touch the board?
Nah, I manually have to press this button right here. I know for a fact I didn't press any button.
I mean, we're all in video right now. We can go back to the tape. You sure you didn't catch it with like a stray forearm or something?
No, because even if I would have done that, I would have been all the way over here. I didn't do anything. Watch the tape if you want. I didn't press
think
a
we're
button.
gonna have to go back and check. I'm very confused as to why you didn't just pull down the fader when it started.
Yeah, I didn't know where it was coming from, to be honest. And then
that's
I look
fair.
up. Yeah.
That's fair. I don't know. I saw it move. By the way, Vic color coded this thing for me over here last week when he was in.
Oh.
So now my stack. So like I have a screen. Whoa, who is firing commercials? Who's playing with the radio station? What's going on here?
I don't know. I need to figure that out.
We do. All right, you figure that out, and you give me an old thumbs up when I can safely go to commercial break as scheduled. Just the whole show is just so far. We are going to get it on track, I promise, and we will obviously talk about DC sports. So what we're going to do for the rest of the show is Ron Rivera is going to talk at 4:30. He is going to answer questions about the defense, about Sam Howell, about all the things. We don't know. I guess any other thing could come up. It's live at 4:30. We'll bring it to you then. Our boy Clinton Yates will join us coming up at 4:45 following Rivera. 5 o'clock, Take Command, tape review. Essentially the basics of why Jack Del Rio is no longer here from the Dallas game and kind of some season-long thoughts. Never read the comments, 5:30. Ben Standig's going to join the show at 6 o'clock. Dave Johnson, 6:15. And then we hand things off to Dave and Glenn at 6:45. So 6:30 is Real Things. Wizards are in Orlando tonight. So that is the plan. Anthony, are we safe over there? Can we safely, correctly, with confidence, toss to a commercial break?
Yeah, we can toss to one.
Okay, that's good. When we get back, Sam Howell spoke about his communication with Eric Bieniemy, and it gave me a thought. I will share that thought with you after this properly pressed commercial break.
going out in the morning meeting and then going out on the practice field, I think things went well.
How different has it been for you, just the prep work, both leading into today and then today with the practice?
It's obviously the time, I used to spend looking at some of the offensive stuff I really haven't done. I haven't had time to be quite honest, to do any of that. So just, being focused with the defensive guys. It's been great too because, we've kind of given different responsibilities to the defensive coaches. I think they've handled those things very well. Guys are, when I come in and, the things that they're presenting, the preparation for each of those meetings has been really good by those guys. And just kind of like, the flow of it, the rhythm has been really good. So that's been good. And I thought the players handled today very well.
I'm curious about the mechanics on Sunday in terms of the headset. Is that just like getting back on a bicycle, or do you sort of run through anything this week to get used to it again, talk to Cody, things like that?
We'll get used to it, but one of the things that we're going to do more so than anything else is, we'll just continue to try and keep things as normal as possible on the sidelines, and just make sure the communications are there. One of the things that we will do is we'll communicate, and we'll talk, and we'll always give ourselves the opportunity to get together and discuss as we get into each series. A little something that I used to do when I was in with the Chargers and then with Chicago, and that's something that you do is kind of communicate what's the anticipation. This is what we've shown. What are we expecting? Those types of things.
As the head coach, you already have voices telling you various things, including like replays, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that even mean more people are in your head? Like how many people will sort of be in the headset for you on game day?
Well, it's no different because when I was listening in on the offensive side and hearing those things, and then listening to the people upstairs about challenges and all that kind of stuff as well, it won't be that much different. It really won't. I think the biggest thing more than anything else is, just the communications that I'll have a few more things to say, between plays.
In terms of wins and losses right now, going through some adversity, what is the challenge of keeping everybody engaged, from the players to the coaches?
I don't think it's much of a challenge. It's all about, to me, it's about playing them one at a time and playing them with a little bit of pride. We're still playing for something. So we might as well go out and, play them one at a time and play them the best we can. And that's what we plan to do. We'll show up, we'll play hard, and we'll give a great effort.
Defensively, looking at Miami, is it kind of picking your poison of targeting, stopping the run versus pass first?
Well, you target what they do, and then you go from there. The way we're going to look at it, obviously, is, this is a very diverse offense, very well coached. They play fast. They've got good, skilled players, and we've got to be able to handle certain things that they do, and play it to the best of our ability.
And Mike McDaniel this week was saying that he sent you a letter when he was looking for a GA job. You're nodding. What do you remember about that, and sort of what did it say?
Well, I remember replying, and then he reminded me of it last year when I was at one of the committee meetings, and we had a great conversation. He's very bright, very sharp young man. He really is. When people do things like that, they take the initiative. It goes back to that old saying that I was told back in the day when I wanted to get into coaching, and that is, they're not going to send a limo, so go get the job. And that was my mentality, and I was very impressed with that, and that's why I responded. He took the time, and the least I could do was take the time to respond to him. And and it's kind of proven it because, he's turned into a heck of a football coach. He really has, and he's done a great job.
Ron, over the last few days, what have you heard from the players on the defensive side, especially about their ideas about how this thing can be improved a little bit going forward?
In talking with them, it was, I think, more about just getting the opportunity to play fast. We did some really good things. We did some complicated things, and I think taking some of those things off their plate would make it easier for them to play fast. And I think that's what they've done. I thought today was a good practice. I thought the guys were dialed in on it. One thing, we did pare things down a lot, and it's just, I think the natural response to it is when when there is changes, let's focus in on these little things and let's get back to the basics.
What is the balance between listening to them and understanding that decisions have to be made about how you're going to utilize them and what they're going to do?
I think there is first of all, the most important thing is that you listen to them, and you hear exactly what they say, and then you respond to it and really tell them, hey, these are things that we can do, and this is why we're going to do them. And just I think giving them the opportunity to have the voice was something they wanted. So I listened and talked with several of them.
Hey, Coach, can you talk about the hire of Jim Salgado?
Yes. Jimmy's a guy that did internships with us before in the past. He's a coach I've known for quite some time, and a couple of times I've tried to hire him, and he ended up in Buffalo. He was with Sean and Leslie in that system, which is similar to some of the things that we do. And so when he was at Michigan State most recently, and when the season was over, the word was they were going to change their head coach. So I reached out to him after the season was over to find out what his status was. He was available, and so we got him, brought him in. He's going to be he's going to come in. He's going to work with the defensive backs, and he's just going to finish the year out for us, and then we'll go from there.
And in Buffalo, you kind of develop a reputation having a specialty in the nickel, specifically the nickel spot. Is that something that you plan to employ here?
Yes, I think it's obviously it's a very important position for us. Especially the way we use the nickel, the Buffalo, the guy that we put in that position, and so that was the idea behind a guy like Jimmy, just knowing who he is, and he's a guy that most of the guys on the staff know who he is, and so that was that made it an easy decision, an easy transition.
Hey Ron, some of the players back here, some of the players said that they're excited now to have an opportunity maybe to talk to you a little more and have maybe some of the times they wouldn't have been talking to you, they'll be talking to you instead of Jack now, obviously. Is a part of you either excited at all to maybe get some of this one-on-one time with some of your defensive guys here as you go through this final stretch of the season?
Well, I think getting an opportunity to interact in a different way is exciting. It's been exciting just because it's different. It's a little bit new. And just having the chance to spend more time and not have to worry about something else. This will be an interesting challenge. I like the challenge. I think it's going to be fun. I like the way like I said, I like the way the guys responded today.
On offense, Sam's been spreading the ball around to a lot of the different receivers. How do you balance doing that with making sure you feed the guys who need to be fed?
Well, that I think has a lot to do with understanding the decision-making part of it, and that's what I think is happening with Sam in terms of learning and understanding that more so than anything else. This is really our his first year, our first year as a team in this system, and I'd like to believe that we've seen what the potential of it could be as we continue to grow in it, and as Sam continues to learn it, and the rest of the guys do too as well. The balance of spreading it to who needs to have it, I think that will come even more so as things continue to develop. I mean, I think EB's done a great job installing this offense and trying to find the ways that it works best for us. It's not perfect yet. I don't think it'll ever be perfect. I don't think there's a perfect offense out there. I just think that as you develop and mature in it, I think it can really come together. At least it looks like it has at times. But we got to put it all together as a team.
With your defensive responsibilities, are there things that will be on EB's plate Sunday that weren't previously?
I don't think so. I mean, one of the things I've talked with the defensive coaches is that as soon as we transition off the field, we need to get together and talk about what needs to be adjusted, and then what the ideas and thoughts can be for the next series as well, and then. Once we get a chance to communicate all those things, then I can step back into that part of it. I will rely on the guys upstairs that have helped me with some of the other things, and and try and gather as much information from there.
Last two games, especially in Dallas, going up against a real explosive offense, seems like there's a bit more commitment to the run with Miami coming in, a really explosive offense again. Is that something that's part of Eric's evolution? Is that a conversation you guys had to try to work towards complementary football when you're facing these explosive offenses?
I believe it is part of Eric's evolution. I really do. I think part of it is just learning and understanding. I mean, it's, again, people have asked me, well, why'd you keep him out there in the Dallas game? Well, he's got to learn this stuff. He's got to grow. And part of it is he will take some lumps and he will make some mistakes. And, but being able to finish and I'll tell you this, after the game, in the locker room, Sam and I had a great opportunity to visit and just spend a little time, and he gets it. He understands it. I mean, it was great. I mean, I made a couple of comments, asked a couple of questions, and his answers were terrific. I mean, he's a guy that's growing and developing and really maturing right in front of us as a football player, as a quarterback in this league. So it's part of the evolution, the growth process. And I know that, the thing that's, you would like is, hey, when you put a new offense in and you're really young guys, you get a chance to really watch more than you do as far as playing. But, this is a young guy that's playing and watching and learning and growing, and that'll be all part of his growth and evolution as well.
And then just a quick follow-up on Tyler Larson. Is that vet day or something?
Yeah, more of a rest day than anything else. He's been rehabbing it. He's been doing all the things that he needs to keep it strong and loose. And last week, if you remember, he had the vet day on Wednesday as well.
Okay, thanks.
What did Sam say in the locker room that stuck out to you so much?
Just how he took responsibility. To me, it was really just. I mean, it's one of those things where he knows that he can be better and that we can be better. And I thought that was really a mature thing to talk about.
When you're paring down a scheme, do you see the increased play speed in practice, or is that something you only see on Sundays?
I think it's something you see in practice. And again, it's just one of those things that you look at and you say, let's pare things back. Let's get down to the base fundamentals. I mean, the hard part for us more so than anything else this year was Defoe getting hurt in the third game of the year. He's a guy that, really when you have a guy back there playing that position, he has to be a guy that's got some experience and stuff. And, that's tough on everybody. When you lose Cody for 4 weeks and then get him back, just last week. I mean, those are guys that are part of the communication process that you've developed and built, since OTAs. And again, it's good to have those guys out there now and have them working and learning and growing.
Time for two more.
Speaking of Defoe, where's he at?
He's still in the rehab program, doing his stuff. Again, he still has to go through certain, points that he's got to get to, and, the doctors will evaluate.
Going back to 2018, when you took over play calling with I think it was like 4 games left, is there anything you're able to draw from that experience, or is it apples and oranges?
It's a little bit of apples and oranges, but, part of it too is, you get into a certain rhythm with the game, and you get into a certain rhythm with the preparation. And I think that's one of the things that, we did when I first got going. I met with the defensive guys separately, individually, and then I met with them as a group, and we talked about a lot of things. And then I talked about the things that I was looking for and what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do them. And then, I was going to give them the weekend off, but then I told them, I said, look, I need you guys to come in on Saturday, so let's get together. And came in on Saturday, and they were all prepared. They had presentations ready to go, things for, all based off of what we had talked about. So, and it made that going through and looking at things and deciding and talking about a really good process. And that's kind of what I mean about having a rhythm, to preparation. And so as we started transitioning on Monday in preparation for Miami, we were able to really just go into this, and everybody knew, their role and started to present, and it's been a really good rhythm.
Do you like play calling?
When it works, yeah. I do because you really are engaged. You really are, and it's, I mean, it takes a lot. I mean, you could see it. When play callers get into a really good rhythm, it happens very quickly, and you have a very good feel for it, and something that I enjoyed when I was a coordinator. The thing I really liked was the practices. I really did. I thought practice was really cool. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, that is not Mark Schlereth. Jeez, Ron Rivera. I was just texting because Anthony, tomorrow I was texting with the Take Command boys because tomorrow we're going to have Schlereth on the show, which will play here on the Hoffman show as well. So that you can look forward to tomorrow. But that was Ron Rivera, obviously, live from Ashburn. A lot of interesting stuff on the play calling, on the defense. But I want to follow up on something that he said about Sam Howell and something that Sam Howell said earlier today about his relationship with Eric Bieniemy. Next, before Clinton Yates joins us at 4:45, it's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You just heard Ron Rivera speak from Ashburn, and in his speaking, he spoke about the growing maturity of Sam Howell. And I'm sure that is true. I'm sure that is the case. However, I think it is always important to remember that Sam Howell has been mature. It is one of the things that stood out in that Dallas game last year, and specifically how he handled the aftermath of it. Howell has been this guy, the leader, the mature adult in the room. Not to say there aren't other adults in the room, but like an adult in the room for sure the whole time. That doesn't mean he's not learning about the NFL. That doesn't mean that he is not adapting and becoming more mature. He's still a young man. He's not even 24 years old yet. And anyone that's been around early 20s males knows there is a lot of maturing to do. So there's that. But he is certainly wise and mature beyond his years, and I think it is interesting to hear Ron talk about the continued maturation from such a fantastic starting point. I think what is also interesting is what Sam himself said earlier today at the podium. Howell was asked about his communication and his continual growing relationship with Eric Bieniemy and how he's grown as a player under EB's tutelage. Here was that answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's doing a really good job. I think, lately he's been calling games really, really well, and I think he's starting to get a really good feel for, how to be successful with the talent that we have here. And I just think I've seen him get better and better each and every week. Obviously, us players got to do our job. We got to take better care of the football. We got to execute better on certain situations. But I think he's doing a really good job. He's growing as a leader, as an OC throughout the season, as he's done probably his whole career. But he's just gotten better every single week, and he continues to work so hard, so it's fun to play for him.
I mean, a pro's pro of an answer. I don't know whether it is how attuned Sam is to the outside noise, but he kind of hits on and pushes back on some of the popular talking points. He takes onus on himself as a player, but I think underneath that is like an undeniable truth that Sam has continued to grow as a player. It doesn't always show up on a linear basis week to week, but there are areas where certainly he is a better player now than he was earlier in the year. And I do think as the year has gone, even though it's not to the extent that I would necessarily like to see it, and some of the holes in the play calling and where the ball goes and the run pass splits and the predictability at certain times are things that I think some of us have been on for a long time at this point. But EB has gotten better. And it's not that he's responding to criticism, that he's listening to the radio and he's like, oh, well, I wonder what everybody that talks for a living thinks while he's busy doing. No, it's like we see it, and it's a lot easier to see without the pressure that you have of doing it, being in the game. And he watches the tape and sees the same thing, and maybe some of us do know what we're talking about when we analyze this sport, at least a little bit. On a larger point, though, I think that the relationship and the communication with Eric is something that is in the spotlight between he and Sam, but also between all players, and Sam talked about that this morning.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that's gotten better every single week. I think he learns more about me, and I learn more about him every single week as we kind of go through this thing. And really throughout, ever since the beginning of this thing, he's always asked for my feedback and input, and he's always been very respective. Like, he's always respected my opinion as far as, if it's something I do like, something I don't like. So he's been very good about stuff like that. And so it's fun to play for a coach that values your opinion. But like going into every game, we always talk about every single call that's on the call sheet, whether I like it, whether I don't like it, what situation I like it in, and he respects my opinion. And as a quarterback, that's all you can want.
Assuming that Sam is telling the truth there, I would say that is unsurprising because that's what coordinators do in this league. Everything is about the quarterback and what can the quarterback do? What does the quarterback want to do? One thing that I think actually makes someone like Kyle Shanahan special is he will have those conversations and sometimes tell the quarterback to suck it up and do it his way anyway. Because, for instance, as the story has now been told dozens of times on Take Command, but Logan tells the story of and he heard the secondhand because when Logan was in Atlanta with Matt Ryan, Sarkisian was the OC. Kyle had left. Logan went there after the Super Bowl year, but he knows Matt obviously very well, and he knows Kyle very well, and knows a bunch of people that were there for that year. And basically, there were times where Kyle Matt would be like, no, take that out. I don't like that play. And Kyle would be like, no, we're leaving it in, and you're going to run it because I know it's going to work. and I need you to be more comfortable doing some things that are uncomfortable and because it's going to make you better. And that push to a great player in Matt Ryan turned him to an elite player. Like, that was his MVP season. It was the best he ever played. But there still is a conversation. It still is a point of meeting you where you are to get you where you want to be. And there's got to be an understanding of how you communicate with certain people, which gets into some very, it's not even nerdy. Like, it just gets into some levels of gray and nuance that a lot of people don't want to hear, and especially don't want to hear right now because they're in the middle of a losing season. And the idea that there could be different ways of doing things that are different for different people, or anything that's not just like hard-ass football coachy stuff doesn't really satisfy. Like, everyone just needs to be tougher and play better. It's like, okay, what is that? Like, that's not really how you get things done. Walking into a room and being mad ain't going to do things. But there's like neurological and psychological terminology for this that goes into the art of coaching. And, something like a window of tolerance is a term that's used in neurology spaces. And it's the ability for people to receive information. And like for Kyle and Matt Ryan, like Matt Ryan was a pretty abrasive communicator. And he'd be the first one to tell you that. He'd just be like, this is what it is. And he could be coached that way. He could be coached really hard because he could actually accept the information. That's a very specific way, or a very specific thing to Matt Ryan. And I think there is a skill set and a mindset for certain people that doesn't really matter how you tell them something. They can do it. But my question would be, if you're a coach, is like, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice about your own communication style, about your own thoughts and beliefs to meet your players where they are? If suddenly you inherited a group that actually learned best by turning every coaching point into a musical theater number, would you get up and sing? Like, I know that's a crazy scenario, and it's obviously not one that's realistic, but like, how willing are you to be? And as we hear stuff with Sam and that maturity and like his relationship with EB, I actually think Sam and EB are a good fit in terms of the communication stuff, because I think Sam is used to that. It's how he grew up. He's got a dad who's a coach, all that kind of stuff. And I think there are other players who come from different backgrounds or different coaching styles or had different coaches growing up or whatever, that or are used to doing things because they're veterans in the league that have played in other places and had success, or young guys that don't really know what it's like to be in the league yet and had a certain style of college coaches, that some of what Eric didn't land. And that's why you're starting to hear some of the rumblings about, oh, he's too hard on players here, or they didn't like that thing. And I think, and it's easy to make this statement now because I am a talk radio guy sitting in my talk radio chair, talking into my talk radio microphone with the benefit of hindsight. But I wonder if they could have gotten more out of this season if, instead of Eric coming in and changing everything and Ron empowering him to change everything, because I think Ron is an important figure here that doesn't get to be let off the hook for this, that if they had found more ways to compromise, to meet people where they were, instead of just being like, we're changing everything, could you have found a way to meet somewhere in the middle to actually bring more people to where you wanted to go in the end? And that's a question, like, that is a true question. That is not me saying I know for a fact, because I don't know enough about what everyone's mad about or what didn't work. Like, there's too much behind the scenes. But I would bet a decent amount of cash that there were people that feel like they got left behind because Eric came in and was just like, we do it this way now. And even if your way works, if you charge ahead and say, you better come my way or the highway, you better come with me. If you turn around at your destination and there's nobody with you, doesn't matter how right your methods were. You don't have anybody with you. And I feel like that's something that may have happened this year with this team. That at the end of the day, while EB might have been right about all these things that worked for him in Kansas City, he got a group of players and, by the way, a group of coaches, because there was some changeover, but not full changeover in the staff, that were used to doing things other ways, some of which worked, some of which weren't the reason that this team was losing. And instead of being like, no, you guys are comfortable, I'll be the one to adjust, it was all EB's way on the offense. And I think that's on Ron as much as anyone to have not done more translating, more compromising, more smoothing of the operation, so that if they had to get from one side of the bridge, from the wherever they were to the Bieniemy, hey, let's win side of the bridge, that a bunch of people did not make the journey across. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, gear change. Clinton Yates joins us. Going to talk about the NBA's in-season tournament, which caused some nice chaos in the league last night. Is this thing working? And what does it even mean to be working? It's next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And yesterday, I got a text from my good friend Clinton Yates, and I got distracted by it because that's what happens to me. And then I realized that the text in the commercial break after I received it was that he was listening to the show, and we were talking about 2 Chainz and the interview that he did with him, and talking about a bunch of other stuff. And now we get to talk about it with him because it's Wednesday, and Clinton joins the show on Wednesdays. What's up?
What's up, man? It was Thanksgiving 5 years ago. This would have been pre-pandemic when I was down there hanging out with Chainz at his charity basketball tournament that he holds at his old high school, North Clayton High School. And I tell people all the time, if you want to know where the epicenter of black culture comes in, basketball camp is where it happens. It was one of the most fun 3 days I've had, period, in a long time, seeing him and what he does to get out to the community and give back. And he's a part owner of the College Park Skyhawks, the G League affiliate of the Hawks. So the guy's a big basketball guy, played at Alabama State, graduated from HBCU. Dude loves ball. So, I heard you mention that he's going to be playing after the Wizards game.
Yeah.
That's easily the biggest part of the entertainment card that evening. No question that.
Absolutely. Without question. As I said yesterday, I'm very surprised he's doing it because I feel like he could sell tickets at Capital One Arena. He's like, no, I'm going to come watch a ball game and then I'm going to perform.
Right. I mean, it's easier for him probably that way, but that is, again, a great ticket. And honestly, those post-game concerts are the best thing happening in that building these days between all of the teams playing and who's actually performing.
Yeah. We can talk about the Wizards another time. Hey, they won on Monday. All they had to do was play the Pistons. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, listen, every single night I get a Jordan Poole update, and it's not better every other night. It is a replay of him doing something ridiculous. And to think that he's in top 10 bonehead Wizards of all time already is just mind-bogglingly awesome. But, God bless him. We'll see where it turns out.
That, my friend, is a list. That is, what a chef's kiss list that is.
Exactly.
Speaking of good NBA ball, though, the NBA's in-season tournament is now in its, the knockout phase. The tournament phase is over. But it was pretty fascinating. I didn't get a chance to watch a ton of stuff last night because it was actually both of our significant others' birthdays yesterday, so we were otherwise occupied. But catching up on stuff today, it seemed like a ton of people were into it. A ton of people that normally wouldn't watch a Tuesday night NBA slate were like, yeah, I'm tuned in. You got the wacky bit between Boston and Chicago where the Celtics are intentionally fouling Andre Drummond up 30 because they're concerned about point differential. And as 2 guys who love soccer and understand what a knockout tournament style is when you're not just concerned about your game, but you're concerned about other games as well. I kind of think the NBA's pulled this off in a pretty nice way, but I'm also open to other opinions. So how do you think this first edition of the in-season tournament has gone?
They've got something here, Gregory, and I don't know that what it is something that I care about or like, but it's certainly not something that I have a problem with, and it's certainly not something that I'm going to turn away from. Now, between the obvious branding of, I know when they're playing one of these tournament games because the court is all goofy, which I actually enjoy as from a branding standpoint, to, we're doing different things at the ends of games now. It's not just the same garbage time recycled 7 minutes that we see in every other NBA game every other night. At that very level alone, I think they've got the right thing going. The other thing, too, though, is that it's made me think about that. What are we really looking for in an NBA product in terms of the type of basketball? You got guys talking about how they don't want to run up the score at the end of games because they have to respect their opponents. But, I'm sorry, what? You're playing professional basketball out here. Since when did we have a problem giving people the beatdown? It's a very interesting thing that thing has made us think about what the competitive balance is that we actually want at the highest level to be. And the fact that this tournament mixes it up a little, it's something, you know what I mean? It's making me think, and that's not bad.
No, definitely not. I think that's okay, next year, because I do think this thing will evolve maybe it's every year. Maybe every year there's a different tweak or whatever on it. But obviously there's going to be some significant change year 1 to year 2 as they figure out what big parts of this worked and what big parts could take on some improvement. So what's the big thing that's worked? You said you like the courts. Is it the format? What are the things that got to keep this?
I think what's worked is the fact that people are understanding that the money is an actual incentive. People are talking about guys down the roster that could benefit from the actual cash making a difference in their lives, because not everybody has these ridiculous guaranteed contracts. And to that point, Craig, I would go so far as to, if we're really going to try to make this a thing, I would change it far more drastically than people realize. Make it a tournament for guys that are not making gazillions of dollars, like that are on NBA rosters. There's a world in which you can say, you know what, you get an all-star or whatever, and you get to call up G League guys, and so that you can get a look at rosters from a depth standpoint. Now, to that point, I would also have to take it out of, maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, out of the regular rotation of what are regular season games from a counting standpoint. That's a different discussion. But at the same time, you could say, if every team has to do this, it tests your depth. Why is this something that we shouldn't consider part of the regular season? I would really make this a developmental thing within the NBA itself without sort of making a mockery of it, because why not? Guys can play, guys can play. And if it's worth something, you get to see what they're made of. This year it's been good. I would take it a step farther next year and maybe even look at that as something 3 to 4 years down the line.
That's definitely an interesting thought. I don't know if I like it, because at the end of the day, like, they're wearing the jersey. And like, if they're wearing the jersey, I want the team. I don't want the developmental team, you know. If I want to go watch a developmental game, like, I'll go to the ESA and I'll watch the go.
But what I'm saying is this, is that, like, when people think about how these European soccer tournaments work, like, that's what they're there for. Like, this is not Champions League. When you think of things like the Carling Cup or whatever sponsor is going from it there, they were used for other things. Yeah, they were the same team, but it was an idea so that you could get to see other players. Like, it wasn't just, oh, we're playing these guys the same thing over and over and over again. Like, there was a purpose to that was slightly different. And what I'm saying is that, like, all right, if I'm going to make sure that there's a financial incentive for guys, I don't mind seeing guys that are playing for the cash right in front of our faces, playing like the rent do, as they say. It's just a different element. And if we're going to look at the totality of the league, there's something in between what we have now and what we could be doing that I think we're still trying to get to.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think that they're, like, as you said, though, if you're going to do that, then you have to take it out of the regular season, and that's fine. It just adds extra stuff for the league to do logistics-wise, but hey, that's their job, not ours. Your colleague on Around the Horn, Kevin Clark, had an idea that I love. Did you catch Kevin's idea for the in-season tournament?
I did not.
So he put this on Twitter a couple of weeks ago during like the first round or the second round of games, and I think this is brilliant. He said, why don't we take these games out of the NBA arenas and play them at like historic venues within these cities? So like the easiest one is, you know, in Indiana, instead of playing at whatever they call the Field House now in downtown Indy, you go play at Hinkle. You know, you're playing at the Palestra in Philly. Like, what do you think of that idea? And from a DC standpoint, where would you play?
That's a good question. I mean, I'd probably honestly play in Baltimore from a DC standpoint. You know, shout out to the old Bullets. I like that idea a lot. I think that's kind of a different thing than what the tournament is supposed to be doing. I would almost rather see that kind of anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that each team does just as a matter of course. But yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, listen, the cool thing about basketball is that you can play it in a lot of different places. For the NBA to try to latch on to that idea, not dissimilar to say, I don't know, but the what Major League Baseball is doing with the Field of Dreams and these Rickwood Field games and stuff like that. Yeah, that makes total sense to me on a lot of levels. I mean, I would watch an NBA game played outdoors, but now we're moving into conversations people don't want to have because of different things. So yeah, that's a good idea. Kevin Clark, how about that? All right.
How about that? Point for him from Reali, you know, proxy points, because he brought up a good idea that we could use on our show. Clinton Yates with us. Of course, you can watch him on Around the Horn on ESPN. Check out ESPN Daily, the podcast as well. It also just strikes this bigger chord in that side of the conversation of like, what are they actually trying to accomplish here? And, you know, I think, again, going back to like the soccer world or like the NFL deals with this at times where it just feels like they're pounding us all for money. And sports is also supposed to be this community thing. And those two ideas are often at extreme conflict. And I actually think like the beauty of that idea is that it takes this like small town community feel to something that is a global brand and brings it back to the community level, which is what we all love about sports. And it's a way to kind of do it authentically without lying to us, but also still keep your behemoth brand. Because like you both want to you want to be small enough that people feel like they can reach out and touch you, but you want to be big enough that you are a big, ginormous global behemoth.
No, you're not wrong about that. But the thing is, the NBA at this stage is so wildly disconnected from that in terms of the salt of the earth brand of American that I wouldn't want anybody to be in a position where, I don't want to say something goes wrong, where it just kind of feels phony, and that's why you got to be careful with things like that. There was an element of that at the Field of Dreams game. Do not get it twisted. You're building movie sets in the middle of cornfields in order for a regular season baseball game to be played. Some people in town were kind of like, I don't know. I don't like it. You know what I mean? And so that's what the balance is from a cultural standpoint that the NBA has to figure out. When you ask, what do we want out of this? I have no idea. I would ask the people that are getting something out of this, what more do they want in terms of the NBA Cup or whatever it is? So I'm looking at it. I'm not going to act like I'm understanding the tournament format, game to game, and watching the clock. But I can tell that these basketball games are operating under a different kind of lens, and that's kind of cool for what it is.
No doubt. And, Adam Silver's probably thrilled that we just did 11 minutes in the middle of football season on NBA stuff. And the Wizards are 3-14. Like, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. It's an attention market.
I agree. And, with a league that's got all sorts of other problems with humans, he's gotten a little lucky that this hasn't been a complete dud in terms of a competitive balance.
That is true as well. Clint Yates, read him, ESPN.com and Anscape. Watch him around the horn. Listen to him, ESPN Daily. Safe travel, sir. I know you're on the way to the airport. Thank you very much for your time, and we will talk to you next week.
I appreciate you. I'll be on TV on Friday, so I'll see you on the air, kiddos.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Hour number 2 of the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Catch us live every day, the whole show. I would typically say all 3 hours, but on a day like today, we're done after 2:45 because the Wizards play tonight and pregame starts at 6:45. But the show always streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. That, a relevant piece of information, considering Never Read the Comments, is coming up at 5:30. However, at 5 o'clock, you know it is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in. Not My Beat.
All right, for today's Not My Beat, how about a little take command? How about Logan Paulson's breakdown of the film defensively? And obviously, it's not good what we saw against the Dallas Cowboys. So we tried to put it in perspective in terms of the bigger picture of why that was the icing on the cake, the straw, or I guess the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of Jack Del Rio being dismissed. And here's just part of our conversation from the Take Command podcast.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulson and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulson, and we are so sorry. We are going to go over the film of the Cowboys game.
What did I text you, man? I said, are we going to do a film review? Because I didn't really want to watch the film again.
No, you didn't. But here's how we're going to do this to make this, palatable, make it more relevant's a good word. Relevant's the correct word even. We're going to look at the offense through the lens of, like, how's Sam doing, right? That is the most important question. So what's the offense doing for Sam? What is Sam doing for the offense as we start kind of the evaluation process of looking forward to the offseason and figuring out exactly what they've got in Ashburn for this team. Defensively, we're going to look at why they fired Jack Del Rio, for lack of a more delicate way to put that. But like, what are the problems that happened in Dallas that were the end of the snowball where Ron Rivera decided afterwards, like, this is the end. We can't do this anymore. And in fact, Logan, because that is probably the bigger headline, let's start there. So they give up, over 400 yards. There's inevitability that there was to it. It just felt like no matter what, Dallas was going to score. There's no better example of this than their first touchdown drive. They start in the shadow of their own end zone. They complete this beautiful ball from Dak to Ferguson down the seam over the outstretched arms of Cody Barton. They pick up a couple of penalties on that drive. They overcome them. And it's one of those drives that, like, in net yardage, they might have had over 100 yards in net yardage on that drive because they have, penalty yards, overcome that, and they ultimately wind up in the end zone. And that's the kind of day it was, and that's the kind of days that they've been having. So when you watch the tape, like, what more does it tell you than the sheer numbers and the production already told us?
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, man, where to start? So, like, in the first half of this game, man, like, I chart, I've said it every week, I chart red and green. Right. This is the most red that I've charted in the first half ever this season, right? It just, guys not in good position, guys not making plays, like, and it's tough, man. It was a tough watch in the first half, so there wasn't a lot of good there. And I just, and it's funny because I don't think guys are. This is something interesting, and this is like one of the great paradoxes of watching this defense is I don't think the guys are bad. I think you've got good football players. I think you've got instinctive football players. I'm just, every time I'm watching it, I'm like, is this guy in a good position to be successful, right? So, like, we were texting a little bit over the weekend, and there's a play where it's, it's this duo run, right? And it looks like Casey's supposed to have outside contain, and then the guy runs for 8 yards. And to me, it's like, does he actually have outside contain here, or is it the safety? And if the safety is supposed to have outside contain, why is he playing so deep? And it's just this really weird, every play is kind of like that, where it's like, is this guy doing what he's supposed to do? Yes. And is he playing with correct technique? Maybe, but is that maximizing what he does? And I think, like, when you watch the first half, I thought on the first drive, they did a good job getting off the field on third down in the first quarter. Like, they got a little bit lucky, right? They had a overthrow by Dak, which kind of sets it up. But, 29 has a nice coverage on the first third down there where, he's in good phase. Everyone's covered up and you're like, okay, there's a good man-to-man down. But then you go to the next play, and that's the sequence that starts that long drive, that 1st and 10. You talk about that Cody Barton play. First off, kudos to Dallas. Like, I just love when I see like fun offensive wrinkles. And again, we talked about how Dallas doesn't have like a ton of offensive wrinkles, but I thought this was pretty cool. Like, they get in like a kind of a bunch. It's a tight trips, and they run all go special, right? And what I love about it is they had the slot receiver act like he's crossing, and so Cody has to settle for a second because the eyes are on this crossing route, and then that guy kind of bounces back out and runs the vertical seam, and it's enough to get Cody out of phase with the tight end. And again, Dak delivers a perfect ball, but love that.
And he's not even that far out of phase. Like, that's one of those where it's like it seems like a commander special where over a guy's head, and Dak puts that ball in a perfect trajectory because if he lofts it, like the safeties are there, Cody's in good position. If it underthrow, it's a pick, and instead it just perfectly in the tight end's arms.
Yeah, and I think we talked about Cody right there. Like, obviously that's a tough play for him, but I think a guy, we talk about guys building for the future or guys that had good games. Like, Cody was a guy that stood out to me as a guy that played really well. I thought he did some really good stuff in coverage. He's a good phase with receivers. I thought he made some nice fits in the run game. So I think a guy that deserves a little bit of a shout out as a guy that played consistent football and was graded pretty well by PFF. So I feel comfortable kind of saying that. The next play, golly, we could do this all day, but the next play is frustrating, right? They're in a cover 2. They've got a 7-man box. It's an 8-man blocking surface. In those blocking surfaces, when you are playing 2, usually you do some type of scrape. You do like because you're accounting for, you're short a gap. You have 8 blockers and 7 defenders, you're short a gap. So what they'll do is they'll stunt the D-line, and then they'll position the linebackers in a way where you're trying to get that will linebacker to be free. And so they run like basically a lead back, and Jamin thinks how to spill it to Cody, but Cody also spills the fullback. They're both hitting the fullback essentially, and then the back bounces it out. So it's like somebody screwed it up. I don't know if Jamin's supposed to pick the fullback and Cody's supposed to scrape, or Jamin's supposed to pick the fullback, Cody's supposed to scrape, and then Kalik is supposed to scrape all the way over the top. I don't know, but again, that's a classic example of what are you supposed to be doing? Because I can see shades of a correct thing here, but obviously it's not the correct thing. And I think that's something you and I talked about quite a bit is there just too much in? Like, because, they're in cover 2, they run cover 3, they play a little bit of man, they play 6. And are you just not maximizing those downs, because you've got too much stuff going on. And I just feel like every single play until the third quarter had shades of that going on with it. So.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing where, to me, it does reflect back on coaching, as opposed to like, oh, these players just aren't whatever. And this is a bit of a sidebar, but we're going to take it real quick. I actually think that we have Rubicon of talk about this that is wrong. Like, I think people have gone from beginning of the year, this is a talented group that's underperforming. Why can't they get more out of this team? To like, actually, we overrated the talent. This team, there's not actually that many good players on this defense, and I just think that's wrong.
Yeah.
Because like I don't think John Allen is suddenly not a very good football player, not an impactful football player when used correctly. Deron Payne, same thing. Like Jamin Davis, I think is shown that he's a very productive football player when he's in good positions. I don't think Benjamin St. Juste can't play in the NFL. He can't be a number 1 corner in the NFL in this scheme, that's for sure. But like they've taken players who we know have talent, who we know are good, and made them so that they're not like they're negatively productive, so that they actively hurt the team. And so I think that's what I'm so fascinated by these next couple of weeks, to kind of finish the sidebar before we get back to this game is. If Ron super simplifies the scheme and it's like, let's get aligned, let's make sure everyone is clear on like one thing they're supposed to do or 2 things, a pass responsibility and a run responsibility, very, very clear, go play. And we might not have all the best answers for everything, but at least everyone will be on the same page. I want to see how many guys played better, because that is really what these last couple of weeks are about, is like, how do you evaluate the talent that you have? And I think in order to do that, you have to allow them to play fast and free. I think part of the evaluation for the next and the next personnel group is like, okay, well, we know we can't put them in something super complex. Like there's guys who can't handle it. And as they talk to players, understand what happened, that's going to be part of the discussion. But I also just wonder, like, did the coaching staff not respond to a couple of key guys in key places who messed up the communication or who couldn't handle the bigger load compared to some of the guys that have been here in the past? Or was it coached so poorly from a detail standpoint that you have a bunch of confusion? And to get back to the tape, like there's a play that happens. Was it Jamin, the one that you sent me that it was Jamin,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where it's like they want him to do this, it would seem, but also based off alignment and where his eyes are supposed to go, he should be going the other way.
Right.
And it's like, sure, if afterwards on tape, if you're like, hey man, you need to back off into this slant throwing window, but during the install period, it's like, hey, because you have a 4 week on this side, your eyes need to be going here.
Right.
And you taught him two different things at different times. No wonder guys are confused. And that's what it feels like has happened a lot. I know that was long-winded, but I hope people understand that the main takeaway here is that you do have talented players, but they were often put in conflicting situations or unclear situations. And that is why ultimately Jack Del Rio is not here.
Yeah, and I think I think that's a great point. I think when you watch Dallas, it's like Dallas's defense. It's the total opposite of what the Commanders' defense is. It's a group that they're extremely confident. And, are they always playing with perfect technique? Do they drop guys in coverage? Yeah. But they're playing fast. They're playing confident. They know what they're doing. They know what their defensive identity is. And I think maybe the most important thing coming out of this game is that coverage group is so incredibly tied with the rush. It's like they're inseparable. And I think like they trust the rush so much in Dallas because they can, right? That's the group that's number one in pressures in the NFL, right? They got guys like Micah Parsons. And you say, well, why are they so good? It's not Micah Parsons winning one-on-ones down in and down out. It's Dan Quinn and that defensive staff. I don't want to give Dan all the credit because I don't know how it goes there. But I know Dan's a smart guy. I know he's a former defensive line coach. And they are constantly looking for matchups and games and ways to create pressure with 4, with 5, with matchup, that there's a hunger and a desire. And we've talked about that passion for perfection with regards to Kyle's offense and how they hunt for angles in the run game, or McDaniels. I started my Miami prep last night, and it's a scary proposition, man, because that group they're starving for maximizing their guys. And when you watch Dallas, you see that. And I think that's something that I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I think Micah Parsons is excellent. I think he's an excellent football player. But I am pretty confident that if you put him in this scheme, I don't know if he's like a 15 sack guy. I think he might be a 9 to 11 sack guy. Because when you just say, hey, win a one-on-one versus, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, name your tackle, it doesn't happen. Even like when you watch like Nick Bosa, like I do a lot of D-line study. When you watch Nick Bosa and you're saying, hey, win a one-on-one versus Lane Johnson, he doesn't do it because Lane Johnson's that good. But the reason Micah gets so many advantages, he's lined up against Tyler Larson for 20% of his snaps today. Oh, he's lined up against Chris Paul for a couple. Oh, he's on a crazy looping stunt where he's completely unblocked. That passion allows them this great coverage dexterity in the back end. And there are times in this game where we have to call attention to the fact that the coverage is good. Like there's a play, I think it's the third quarter. Kendall Fuller's in 2-man. It's 3rd and 11 or 3rd and 12. That's the dig. He plays the 2-man perfectly. The rush doesn't get home. Dak extends the play. The receiver uncovers it, ends up being a big play, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, Kendall's terrible, blah, blah, blah. But that's the rush. That's not being disciplined with the rush. And I think like that, even when the coverage was good, like winning coverage, the rush wasn't there. And I can't be mad at the rush because they are literally like, hey, line up in the same position every single time and rush the passer. And I just think that's an unrealistic expectation in the NFL. Look at all of the teams with top flight pass rushers. Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, name your guy. They are finding ways to maximize those guys, right? They play techniques. They play a defensive scheme that allows them to be aggressive. And you mentioned, Payne and Allen and all these guys. I think there's a reason that they're not being overly successful is because they're literally just it's like, win this one-on-one, win it. And if you can't win it, Like, what are we paying you for? And I don't think that's entirely fair. And so I think that to me was the big, like, seeing Dallas do it.
The lack of pressure was crazy in this
Yeah.
game. Like this was probably the worst pass rush game that they've had. And they've had some ineffective games, but there's been like New England I don't hold against them because while Mac is terrible at basically everything else, he gets rid of the ball quickly.
And they were pretty good about creating like pressures in the context of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Here it just felt like Dak had a full pocket all day. I mean, they had 14 pressures in the game by PFF's number. Like, that's nothing.
Yeah.
That's nothing when you watch week to week in this league.
And I think the other thing you see there is like there's not a lot of third downs. There's not a lot of third and longs. There's not a lot of opportunities for them to rush. And so you get guys like there's a play where they're in drop 8 and Casey Toohill's in a 4-eye. Andre Jones is in a 4-eye. And they're looping out into this drop 8. And so there's no conceivable way that I expect them to win a rush where they're lined up over the guard. They got to get outside the tackle and then start their rush. Like that's just, they're not going to win, right? And whoever's playing nose is not going to win because the second those guys leave, they're going to double team down on the nose and you're going to have this beautiful pocket. And that's what happens. And I think that's something that really, and, Ron said in his presser, he's like, we're going to try and find ways to create more pressure with 4, get better angles with 4. And I think there's something to that. Like I also coach offensive line. And one of the things that's tough about line stunts is you coach this pass protection angle. And when you deviate the angle, that's when it gets really complicated, when I'm changing my approach. And they just don't do that a lot here. And it's tough. And we talked about this in the preview show. One of the things that's really definitive to me is that this offensive line is good. They are good in Dallas. Yeah. And so what happens when you get a good offensive line is you got to do something to elevate. And I thought there were some times where they made good pressures. Jamin Davis did an excellent job blitzing, creating pressure, but you did it 3 times out of 54 snaps. And that's just not effective, I don't think. So I think that was the big takeaway from me is we can go through every single play, but there's going to be plays where you're like, man, coverage was good, rush was bad, or the rush was good, coverage was bad. And they just never got synced and it was so nice to watch Dallas, to watch how they do it. Cause you're like, that's the gold standard for how these groups should be working together.
Yeah. All right, that from Take Command, which you can check out in full. More thoughts on the defense, the coverage side of things, a little bit more specifically, and then some thoughts on the offense and how it's progressing in the full episode of Take Command, which is available now. Tomorrow, we will talk to Mark Schlereth on Take Command. We'll air that for you probably tomorrow, and then some of the Miami preview on Friday here on the radio. But, of course, if you want the full thing on your schedule, on demand, that's what podcasts are for, and you can check it out in your favorite podcast app. And in fact, if you, Anthony, you're an Apple Music guy, right? Not a Spotify guy?
Apple Music, baby.
So you don't do the Spotify Wrapped, because Spotify Wrapped dropped today.
Does that detail basically your
everything
year
you
in
listen
review?
to? Yeah, your year in review. Does Apple do that too?
Yes, ours dropped as well. I've been seeing a lot of people post theirs.
Okay. So Spotify Wrapped is out. Apple whatever is out. And so if either the Hoffman Show podcast or Take Command is in your top podcasts, screenshot that, send it to me. Tag me on Instagram at Craig_Hoffman. We'd love to share some of those. Say thanks, shout you out for being a loyal listener. And that's the kind of guy that I am. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, I'm also the kind of guy that occasionally does things that I'm not supposed to, like read comments on the internet, specifically on our YouTube channel. And that's where we go. Never read the comments, 5:30 on a Wednesday. That is next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at 6 o'clock, Ben Standig of The Athletic joins the show, talking Commanders before Dave Johnson at 6:15. We'll get to Never Read the Comments in just a moment, but Anthony, is it just me or did the AC just kick on? Did it do the thing?
I think your spidey senses are telling you it did the thing, and they are correct because it is cold.
Yeah, it just got real cold.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Well, first, before we adjust the air conditioning, let's hit the Fancy Open.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
We do read the comments from YouTube at Craig Hoffman, at the Team 980, at 1067 The Fan, every Wednesday at 5:30. Subscribe if you are streaming the show live on YouTube right now on the Team 980, or, of course, if you're watching this later on demand, at Craig Hoffman. The button's right there. If you're listening to this live on the radio, we have a YouTube page, at Craig Hoffman, at the Team 980. Either one, you can find highlights of the show, and then you comment on them, and then every Wednesday we collect the comments that we think are most worthwhile responding to. Not necessarily the best, not necessarily the worst, just ones that are thought-provoking. But I also respond to a ton of them actually on YouTube, but we pull the best and we talk about them here on the radio. And Anthony, we're going to start very big picture, like the biggest of picture. This from Pierre De Silva, 2156, 6 days ago. So this is admittedly before the Thanksgiving Day massacre. However, Craig, technically you're probably right about our chances of a postseason, but nobody wants to even hear about our odds. We will watch week to week and enjoy whatever comes out of it. There will be some fruit of our devotion. It could be some record Sam Howell set or a cool addition to the team. I guess when you said the season is over for us, it struck a nerve, and I thought about what the Commanders have in store. Well, the Commanders don't even know, but I will be there. Not saying you're wrong, just need to be a little diplomatic as to not dash our hopes, even for little things. I don't know what to tell you if you got, and obviously this was before the Dallas game, but if you still have hope for playoffs, I admire your optimism. I admire your ability to say, hey, it might be a 2% chance or whatever, but it's 2%. I'm going to hold on. And I'm certainly not telling you, because this is something that I brought up in response to this when I responded on YouTube. I'm certainly not telling you not to listen. I'm certainly not telling you not to watch the games. I'm certainly not telling you not to listen to the coverage. Ultimately, it's my job / our jobs to make sure the coverage is still interesting. I can't help what happens on the field during the game. But we can talk about what it means. We can talk about what's next. We can talk about what went wrong. Like, we'll find ways to be entertaining. Or we'll make silly jokes and do funny bits. And, you know, we'll make the hours of 4 to 7 every single day as enjoyable as we can. But me saying that there's no chances at the playoffs doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy the season or watch the games. Like, don't let me relaying mathematical formula outcomes. The chances that they make the playoffs are not good. Ruin your fun. Like, people can still watch the games, Ant. I'm still going to watch the games because you never know what's going to happen. Football is fun. Sports are fun. But that doesn't mean the season's not over.
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's some excitement to be had about this. Like, we still want to see what Sam does. We want to see, if Terry can make some, late season plays where he can be another Pro Bowler. Things of that. Like, we still want to watch just for the heck of it. But I'm not going to not watch the games. Like,
yeah,
every Sunday is a new game. Like, I'm excited to watch the Dolphins as well. Granted, it comes at the expense of them putting up 40, 50 points on my team. But, they're exciting to watch.
It's the most any given Sunday league in the world. I mean, truly, obviously anything can happen any given night in the NBA, but part of that is like the schedule, and there's 82 games, whatever. But really, when the games are this regimented, when there's this much strategy involved, to still have this much randomness is kind of crazy. At the same time, like, they've played it. We're not in October anymore. Like, we're damn near in December. So, reality check, it is what it is. And we can see what's left and then talk about what it means for the future. But I was like, oh, are you mad at me? Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just the messenger for the math and the reality. I thought this one was interesting. Plenty of comments on Overreaction Tuesday with Linnell yesterday and some of the other discussions that I had with Logan this week. We put Take Command clips up on the YouTube page as well. And I think there's kind of this overwhelming thought about some of the mental side of the game, of the sport, of the franchise. And Anthony, I meant to have you pull the J. Cole lyric here. But Off to Another World 7434 says, "Don't save them. They don't want to be saved." And I really wish I had remembered to tell you to pull that J. Cole, "Don't save her." Yeah. If you know, you know. If not, then me singing didn't help you. The point is, don't save them. They don't want to be saved. Speaking of the softness of some of the players on this squad, a leader should not change a successful style for one or two. Those one or two or even more need to either buy in or shut the heck up and move on when they get a chance. They're clearly poor followers. On the other hand, I wonder if this leak comes indirectly from Ron. Keim is the only reason I'm even considering this. We all know Ron, I don't know what Keim has to do with anything. We all know Ron said something to this effect a while ago. He ended up giving a written apology. We know Logan and Leno's complained. We do? Sure. Off to Another World seems to know a lot. We've heard Cosme question the play calling as it relates to running the ball more. That is true. I just think these players are so used to dysfunction that they themselves become dysfunctional. It is time for a reboot. The problem with that is it might take a while to sweep that toxic losing mindset out. I do believe some of the players on this team are okay with losing. Rookies come in and see that. Eventually it does become a job code for I'm just here for the bag, where winning is absolutely secondary. I think there are a lot of good points in this that are framed in a way that I hate. I do not, as a rule, question the motives and motivations and mindsets of people who are performing at the literal highest levels of a thing that we all would love to do. If any of us could be playing in the NFL, if we were talented enough to do it, we would. And the thing about talented people is they have levels that they can work at that are just beyond what most people can. Sure, there's natural gifts of athleticism and strength and speed and power, but they then take those gifts and they really work, most of them, extraordinarily hard to get to whatever level they're at. And they might work really hard and I'll pick on Logan because Logan would be the first guy to tell you, Logan maximized every ounce of athletic ability he had to become a third string tight end in the NFL. Like, he's still better than 99.97% of every dude that's ever played tight end on the planet. Like, Logan was elite, but he was a blocking third string tight end who, if he had been, like, I'll put it this way, and Logan, can't get mad at me for this because he knows it's correct. If Logan had to be a every down starting tight end, he wouldn't have been a very good one. Like, that's just, he wasn't fast enough. He wasn't explosive enough. We were talking about a play the other day, and it was like, one person we were talking about a CO concept, a corner out. And he's like, I always ran the out because I wasn't fast enough to run the corner. Like, that's the reality. Now, to be clear, Logan Paulson, in his playing days, was 6'5", 265 to 275 pounds, and ran a sub 540. He, by any stretch of the imagination that is not NFL athlete, is a physical freak who was not big, fast, or strong enough to be a starting tight end in the NFL. Like, so when we're talking about this level of skill, this level of dedication, I do not like it becomes just a job, loser mentality. I think it is on coaches and players to find ways to work together. They're all adults. And I think it's more on the coaches, especially as the league gets younger, than the players to adapt and get the most out of the talent, because the talent is what shifts year to year, and it's up to them. There's only a limited number of guys who can play at this level. By the same token, I also won't judge the end of seasons, because Anthony, I've been around locker rooms long enough. I did the reporter thing for long enough. By the end of the season, dude, like, everybody knows. These guys see the standings. They know the score. Doesn't mean they're not trying hard on Sundays. But, like, they're human beings. There's going to be human nature, and how people act and react to certain things when you've lost a bunch of games is not going to be everyone's best, and there's going to be people that disagree with how things are done. And when you're losing and you've lost a bunch, they might have some good points. Even if some of their individual play at times could have been a reason why you're losing. So it's just too and this is like a classic me take. I know, oh, it's gray area, it's nuance. But it is. Like, there's a lot of different reasons why things have gone sideways and south for the Commanders this season. And to try to pin it all on one thing, or to say, like, oh, it's a bunch of losers. Like, no. You could have a refreshed energy for a new coaching staff that comes in, puts these players in better positions schematically, teaches them the details they need to do better, and a lot of these same players, I think, could be a part of a winning roster next year. We'll get more on that in just a second. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Taking a look at the comments. Never read the comments, they say. We don't listen here on a Wednesday. Jim McGee, 5583, says, I'm going to comment on the training camp schedule. I recall that talking about Eric Bieniemy here in reaction to the discussion Linnell and I had yesterday. I'm going to comment on the training camp schedule. I recall that EB's new schedule showed them to be much more effective with their time. They ran twice as many plays. They got things done. Expectations were set. Results were not achieved, but we looked much better in the beginning of the season than we had looked in the past. I don't think there's any doubt that they are better this year offensively, and that they got off to a better start offensively than they have in years past. But comparing it to years past, specifically the last three, where Scott Turner led very mediocre to bad offenses, is not really that much to be proud of. It's like, what are you actually bragging about? And I think there's also something to the wear and tear, not the wear and tear, but like I think there's some guys that weren't really ready for that, to be honest. And I think it hurt them. I think a guy like Jahan Dotson took some weeks to get his legs back underneath him. That training camp was much harder than anything he had done. And, he didn't prepare for that. He didn't understand what it meant to be prepared for that. And if he had to do it again next year, he'll be a lot more ready. And you just don't know what you don't know, because that's part of being a young player in the NFL. I also think that for all those plays they ran, they never developed a consistent run game. So that seems to be an issue and how it's cropped up this year. But yeah, like, I like a lot of what they did. I like the long drive drills. I like a lot of that stuff. But at the end of the day, it hasn't worked. And I also wonder what kind of effect that had on the defense, because the defense did not start fast. Not only did they not start fast, they never had their midseason turn after they didn't start fast. So, yes, offensively, they look better. I think Bieniemy's way clearly works. I think, obviously, Bieniemy's way can work because Bieniemy's way is Andy Reid's way, and the Chiefs' defense has been sick this year. They've had a bunch of other good defenses in the past. Andy Reid's been to NFC and AFC championship games on the regular in Philly and here, or Philly and in KC. So, yeah, there's definitively a method there that works. But did it work for this team? Or is that something that, like, okay, that wasn't the problem? I think I'd probably lean towards that. But I think there's other scheduling things that have maybe ticked players off. Whether they've had an actual win or loss impact, I think, is a different story. Just because players are mad about something doesn't mean it's the reason that they lost. It just means they're losing, and, oh, by the way, the players are mad. Speaking of training camp, Mr. BRD09, this is one of my favorite chuckle comments of the week, Anthony. Mr. BRD09 says, talking about the defense, how were they so far ahead of the offense according to reporters watching camp? Anthony, when was training camp?
Training camp was late July, early August.
What month is it now?
We are days away from December, but late November.
Is everything in the world the same as it was in late July, early August?
No, it is not, sir.
What year in the system are they defensively?
4.
What year are they in the system offensively?
1.
Do I need to connect the dots, or do you think people will get it?
I think people got it.
Okay. Just, I got to make sure. Yeah. Here for the people. Oh no, I scrolled down. Back to the comments. Here we go. All right. At PCC1901, Hoffman's still holding on to the lie that he and everyone told themselves to begin the season. Coming in hot here. Namely, there's, quote, lots of talent on the roster. You need minimum 3 O-line. Cosme and Stromberg seem okay. Leno is a high-end backup at this point. That's just factually incorrect. He's a average to below average starter, which maybe you say high-end backup, but like whatever. A whole new tight end room, some speed at running back. You'll need a wide receiver 3. You'll need several edge guys, a whole new linebacker room, 2 corners, a new safety, outside of defensive tackle and wide receiver. We have no solid starters. I think I talked about this last week, but like we have jumped the shark on both underrating some of the talent that is here and understanding that you don't get to have a great player at every position. Like some positions you just need to have fine, solid starters. And I know this is going to break people's brains, but like I think Cody Barton or Jamin Davis could be a solid starter. I would like to have a stud at the other linebacker position. And I do think being understaffed at linebacker has been a problem for the entirety of the Rivera era, in part because they've moved Jamin around a ton and asked him to do stuff that is not necessarily in his wheelhouse. But if you can go get a stud middle linebacker and put him with Jamin can be better. Like, I think that's a really good room all of a sudden. Or if you get a stud weak side linebacker, or Jamin develops next year into one in a different system, like Cody can be fine, considering linebacker is a position that has been incredibly de-emphasized around the league because a lot of it is dependent on your D-line in front of you. Yes, they need to go find a stud defensive end. They would have liked to keep Montez Sweat, not at that price, and the Bears offered a crazy draft pick for him. So you go use that draft pick on a much cheaper, almost as good as Montez Sweat, edge guy, and you're fine. Or you spend a lot of money on a guy with more pass rush juice, a la Brian Burns from Carolina. Fine, you got to do that. Cam Curl's a good football player. Quan Martin, I still think could be a good football player if you stop asking him to do 78, 11 jobs. Like, just have the dude play safety or play nickel. Okay, well, there's one of those spots solved. Not to mention, like, Percy Butler's not a bad football player. He's been overexposed this year. But here's the thing that people like this commenter get so wrong. Players grow year over year. You're not the same player in 2024 as you are in 2023. And with better coaching, you can actually make a pretty significant jump if you have a great position coach. Because that guy can help clarify things for you mentally and allow your physical talent to shine. So a Derek Forrest, a Percy Butler can be a much better player, and hopefully they make less of some of the mistakes that they've made this year that have been some of the issues. They also just could become better football players because they have another year of experience, and this is the same as anyone in any job. And this is, I would also say, like, I would assume Bieniemy's a better full-time play caller next year, here or elsewhere, because he's got a year of experience. And then an offseason to review his work and get incrementally better. Not that you'll be a totally different person. You don't go from, like, the 40th best safety in the league to the first best safety. But could you go from 40th to 28th? Yeah, and if your other guy, if you're Cam, and, all of a sudden you go from 17th to 8th, well, if you go from, and I'm just making up these numbers, but if Percy's the 40th or Forrest is the 40th, and you go from 40 to 28 and 17 to 8, all of a sudden that's a pretty good safety room. I think Emmanuel Forbes is probably going to be just fine. I have questions about certain matchups. I don't see what happens with A.J. Brown next year, but like, by and large, I think Emmanuel Forbes is going to be just fine. So the idea that like you need a zillion new players, that nobody's good, just belies the fact that this is a young team that will improve. And if the goal is solid at a lot of these positions, I think they have guys that can do that. They do need a bunch of studs. It's my biggest gripe with Rivera's player personnel. The best player on the team when he took over the team was either John or Terry. And the best player now is either John or Terry. And both those guys, by the way, are having probably the worst years of their careers. So how can you get better stud level players at some key positions, including edge? I would like a stud left tackle just because I think Leno's like you can pass with Leno. What happens if you excel at that position and get like a stud young tackle? What if you get a stud tight end in the second round? Like, these are the kinds of things that I would like to see this team do. So I'm not endorsing the current roster as is. All I'm saying is, if you think that there is no talent here, you've swung too far the other direction. You're just wrong, and you're especially wrong going into next year when some of the talent that's here now will be better, because that's how young talent works. Speaking of, question for Craig Logan. This was on Take Command from Mark Harris, 1976. How does the staff go to the players who are young for the most part and simplify without starting over? That kind of in conjunction with Doug Weingar 01. Can't do much until the new head coach comes in and decides to run 3-4 or 4-3, right? In terms of changing the defense this year. You can do a lot of stuff different. And I'm gonna overcomplicate this on purpose, so everybody hold on to your seats. The point is that it's complicated, right? The point here is that this is complicated. Let's say you're the nickel, and the call initially is cover 3. So if you're the nickel in a cover 3, like a base regular cover 3, draw it up on Madden Zone, you are the hook player or the flat player, depending on which variation you're playing. Probably actually the flat player. In the 4 underneath defenders. So your job is to run out towards the flat. You're supposed, if the running back goes out there, you got to make sure you make that tackle. If there's any outbreaking routes towards that flat, they're on you. All that stuff, you're on top of it. But let's say if it's 4-by-1, you automatically are checking to cover 4. Okay, well now I got a different responsibility. Or if it's empty, now we're playing man. Okay, well I got to remember that. Let's say it's a match scheme, and if number 2, so the wide receiver that's second in, runs a seam route or runs up the sideline on a wheel, you've got to match that. So that's something else you have to remember. But that's only if he lines up inside the numbers, whether it's in a stack or a bunch or just that's where he lines up. If he's in a wider whatever, or out inside whatever, 7 yards, let's say. Let's make it really complicated. You don't even get a field marker. You got to kind of do the math. If they line up in like a stack outside wide, you don't have to worry about that. And again, these are all hypotheticals, but these are the kinds of things that they've asked them to do in this defense. And oh, by the way, you also have a run fit. And you have to make sure that, oh God, that guy just went in motion. Which gap do I have again? Because I had the C gap, but now I have... It gets very complicated. So what Ron can do and will do is be like, we are running cover 3. Your run fit is you have the D gap and you are playing the flat. Go play. And that might not account for that wheel route up the sideline where, you have 2 players attacking one zone or whatever other route. I probably picked a bad example with a wheel route in cover 3, but the point is, like, you might not have the perfect answer because you're not matching the route concepts. You're not doing some of the stuff that you would theoretically do. But what you are doing is making it easier to play fast and simplifying. And that's what they can do now. And I think that will get us a better evaluation on these players moving forward. And then it's up to the next staff to try to find the balance of complexity to have the best answers and simplicity to allow people to play fast. That is Never Read the Comments for today. You can leave your comments at Craig Hoffman, at the Team 980, and at 1067 The Fan on the full episodes of Take Command. We get back here on the Hoffman Show. Ben Standig joins us talking GM candidates, and The Athletic just put out a mock draft. Yeah, we're doing it next. Final hour, really final 45 here of the Hoffman Show. Dave Johnson joins us in about 15 minutes live from Orlando. And then Dave and Glenn have your pregame and then ultimately tip Wizards and Magic coming up at 7 o'clock. Right now, though, it is our pleasure to welcome back to the show for the first time in a while our guy Ben Standig. Ben, how are you, sir?
Craig, I'm doing all right, man. How about yourself?
Doing well, man. Doing well. So your outfit, the Athletic, published with your guy Dane Brugler their first mock draft today, which I think out of like the main outlets, I feel like this is the first one I've seen. Hey, are you guys like trying to be first, or did I just miss a bunch of other ones?
I can't even keep track. As we know, mock drafts are like podcasts. Everyone seems to have one.
Yeah.
So I don't even know anymore in terms of some of the bigger names who's put out what, but obviously Dane is one of the more respected guys. So, it's his first one, and obviously the college football regular season has just ended. So I guess in that respect, it's a good time to, take that perspective of what he's learned and put it out there to the public domain.
Yeah, no doubt. And so he has the Commanders taking offensive tackle from Penn State, Olu Fashanu. And I think it's interesting, Ben, just kind of globally as we talk about this, to remind the audience that everything we do in terms of Washington projection between now and at least mid-January is really, hey, we think this would be a good idea for them, because the people that are going to make these picks aren't in their jobs yet. They're still working for other teams. There will be a new GM. That GM will hire some new front office people. There'll be a new head coach, yada, 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 down the list. But what do you think, without knowing like what scheme they're going to run and all the other things, of the idea of going tackle, and what does that mean for Charles Leno, the cap situation, and kind of the bigger picture of the Commanders as they embark on the next rebuild?
Yeah, I mean, like, to your point, we don't know who's making the decision and what their approach would be, and maybe more specifically, we don't know what they think of Sam Howell, and that's obviously going to be a huge question. It's amazing. Even a week ago, right before the Giants game, I don't think any of us were thinking this team would be picking fifth, which is currently where their projection is. But life moves fast, and that's where they are. And now that does bring quarterback into play. But since we don't know what to make of that, right? I mean, and there were other quarterbacks picked fairly high in the draft after the first two guys went 1 and 3. It's probably easy to say, let's give Washington a tackle right now, because we know the offensive line has got to be in a position that they look to help out this year. So that makes it a little bit easier there. And it's, as far as what it would mean for Charles Leno in particular, look, he's got a pretty big cap number. Obviously, there are ways to lower that, extension, or do some other things that you can manipulate the cap with, but he would seem like a logical cap casualty or potential one just based on the numbers and kind of where this team is right now. So taking an offensive lineman or offensive tackle at 5, I haven't studied enough to know whether this is the guy to get, but obviously based on the lists you see in the rankings, he's right up there along with Alt from Notre Dame. So makes sense in that regard. And, I don't think anybody would complain about them taking tackle unless there is a feeling that, hey, they've got to go quarterback if given the opportunity.
Right. What do you think Sam has to do to stave off that conversation over these final 5 games?
I mean, as simplistic as this sounds, I just kind of think look the part and continue to show development. As bad as the game was on Thursday against Dallas, I thought Howell, particularly in the first half, looked the part, looked fine. He had some really nice throws on the drive that he capped with his own touchdown run right before Dallas immediately came back, scored, and then the game kind of got away in the second half. They've got tough defenses coming up. Even this game against Miami, we're not viewing the Dolphins from the defensive perspective because their offense is so scary, but their defense has been pretty good. They've got a couple of excellent cornerbacks led by Jalen Ramsey, but they've got a legit defense. If Sam Howell, forget the win and the loss, if Sam Howell can go out there, look poised as he has been this year, make plays, he's got to limit the turnovers. I think he's like second in the league in interceptions, has thrown 2 pick sixes in consecutive games. Do his best to limit the mistakes. If he can do these things over the remaining 5 games, that might be enough, combined with his other positive attributes, to say this is a guy we need to continue looking at, especially knowing he's got this cheap contract. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the guys that are going to be in this draft who are going to be picked in the top 10 will all be coming out of college with a higher grade than Sam Howell did when he came out. And therefore the question will be, does Howell project, forget the fifth round part, but does Howell projection compare with what scouts and others are seeing with these players? If the answer is no, that he falls short, that's where it's going to be tough almost no matter what he does, I would think.
No, 100%. And I think that becomes such a scary proposition, and this is why scouts get paid what they get paid and why GMs get paid so much money, is because, like, Sam was a fifth rounder. Purdy was the last pick in the draft, and I would argue that of the quarterbacks that came out the last 2 years, those are two of the top three, with C.J. Stroud being above both of them. Obviously, Richardson's hurt. Young's in a terrible situation in Carolina. Like, there, you can pick apart some certain numbers and say that Kenny Pickett actually has been better than Sam Howell. I think most people, certainly around here, would take Howell over Pickett. But, like, the point is, like, Sam's actually, as you said, mostly looked the part. And so I am curious when a new person comes in and dives into the numbers and, like, goes beyond the fact that he leads the league in yards, because that's a counting accumulation stat. He also leads the league, as you referenced, in interceptions at this point. Like, how does it actually play out in terms of the deeper numbers and what they see from a process standpoint? How does the leadership stuff play into it? Ron was talking about that with the maturity today. And when you add all that up, like, I feel, Ben, like that's actually going to be hard to beat from a prospect who isn't very clearly elite.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it is really going to be fascinating. Just to sort of broaden out the topic, like, as you and I are looking for content all the time, and we will be looking for a lot of it in the off season. And we knew we were going to have a lot already because of the expected coaching change in the front office and all that stuff. The quarterback thing seemed to not resolved itself, but it felt like, okay, if Washington's picking in the somewhere after the 10th pick, that Sam Howell would make logical sense to stay with him. And the fact that now this drop in the standings has put them back in the mix for a quarterback at the highest levels. I mean, they will be close enough, if they were to stay at 5, to trade up for Caleb Williams at 1 if that's what they wanted to do. Should the Bears or whoever is holding the number 1 pick, should they be willing to make a call? That is a conversation I didn't think we were having, and that's why it is going to be incredibly interesting and important for these guys to figure out what to make of the traits of these quarterbacks, like you said, not just how they throw the ball, but being a leader on offense of the team. How do they handle pressure? How do they take the coaching? All these things will go into it. At least the organization has that sense of that with Hal, except if they do clean house, then none of those people will in theory be around. Right. So, now it goes back to a whole other component of evaluation. So, yeah, it will be really fascinating to see how this plays out. And, that to me is like, these, I wrote the other day, these final 5 games can be a slog unless you view it for what it is. It's sort of evaluating how, and kind of the beginning of the Josh Harris era in terms of starting to get a feel for where this thing may go.
Ben Standing from The Athletic with us. One more question for him on the way out. Same kind of thought line, but on defense. How do you think that the simplification of what Ron is going to be asking these defenders to do compared to the mass confusion that was this entire season under Del Rio can help the evaluations on that side of the ball? Or is it kind of just a wash, and the next people are going to come in and take whatever evaluations they had of these players previously, and that's what they're going to think of them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it is always kind of a weird thing when you hear coaches say we need to simplify things. That may help short term, but I always feel that sort of doesn't sound great for the longer term view. Like, what was it so what were they doing? Calculus in the huddle? Like, what is so complicated that things were so bad that we've seen explosive plays allowed all season long? But okay, if in the short term Rivera thinks they need to simplify things, limit the amount of plays in the playbook for the given week, will help. Sure. I mean, they got 5 games to go. The Miami game is an unbelievable.
That was Anthony mishitting a button, Ben. You can keep going.
Miami makes it such a daunting challenge for them right off the bat. So if simplifying the playbook and everything makes it easier to deal with them, I mean, great, go ahead and do it. But in terms of the bigger picture evaluations, you're right. We'll see to what degree he does that, changes things, that it alters perceptions or evaluations of any of these players. And look, I think a real big question is going to be, what do they actually have? I mean, if you just look at the defense, obviously they traded away the 2 defensive ends. You've got the 2 tackles. Then what? Like, I don't know what to make of the rest of the unit, knowing that guys like Fuller and Curl are free agents. I'd argue they probably need 2 linebackers. Do they have to draft another cornerback or sign another cornerback high, considering what Forbes has been this year? They have a lot of questions, and hopefully at least they get some more clarity, whoever's making the call over these last 5 games.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like I like some of the talent a little bit better than you do, but I also I don't feel strongly about any of it because the results are what they are. I said that was the last question, and then Anthony did whatever he just did. So now I have another question for you, Ben. You get to play referee, which I know is your just lifelong dream. We have a fine system here on the show, and it's kind of like penalties in the NFL. There's 5-yard varieties, 10-yard varieties, and 15-yard varieties, and we just do 5 points, 10 points, or 15 points. Is Anthony editing a clip on the air in the middle of a guest, and it happens to be the guest who's refereeing this question's answer, a 5, 10, or 15-point penalty?
Wow, great question, and I don't have Dean Blandino to reference here. Look, part of me wants to, you got to have the kids learn their lessons. Part of me wants to give the 15, but look, Anthony's a young kid. He's trying hard. I'm gonna give him the 5 and just tell him, don't do it again, or you're gonna have to, talk to me about it.
What kind of youth league referee garbage is this? We're a professional radio show, Ben.
I appreciate you, Ben.
You're not here to try hard. We're here to perform. All right, fine. 5 points. I said he's the referee. I will respect the decision. I will argue the call later. I will say thank you for your football insight, and I will question your referee.
Well, you can ask New York, you can throw the flag, have it challenge it. I mean, that's fair.
All right, we'll deal with that later. Well, maybe I'll appeal to Dave Johnson next. I think that's what I'll do. Ben, thank you for the time. Thank you for the time. I'll see you Sunday in the press box.
Yeah, man. See ya.
All right, that's Ben Stanig. Dave Johnson is next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Wizards in Orlando tonight, which is where we find Dave Johnson.
Time to get the radio party started.
Blocked by Bilal Coulibaly. Oh boy, did he stuff him. Left wing pool, it's there. Oh, that's a pool party. Near the basket, slam right there. The steal and the slam. You better go off. Intercepted by Kispert. Kispert now, foul line. Oh, slam. Ooh, that'll jar your preserves.
It's time for Dave Johnson on a Wizards game day.
Kuzma for three. Oh, it's there. It's there. Big shot.
On the Hoffman Show.
Dave down in Orlando, where pregame is just 25 minutes away. Dave, how excited are you to be in Orlando compared to the weather that you had in Detroit?
Well, the funny thing is, everyone here in Orlando is oh, you got here, it's chilly. It's cold. Let me tell you something. I would go sunbathing in this weather right now. So what they consider cold, and that's, by the way, a sight you don't want to see because if you need a whiteout, it would be me sitting by a pool trying to sunbathe because I'm of Scandinavian ancestry, so I'm actually built to live near the Arctic Circle, so that's okay. But they're saying it's cold down here. It's child's play, and they're saying it's cold. But I was also talking to a guy from the Magic who played golf on Monday, so nobody pull over and break out the violins for the people here in Orlando. As I told them, I said, I think a few people figured out it's kind of nice down here, and so they moved here and they made it a city. Although, I'm telling you right now, I was flying in yesterday, I'm looking down, and I'm realizing there's a lot of, we're in Central Florida. We're not near the ocean, but there's a lot of lakes and little bodies of water, and that means there's a lot of alligators down here. I mean, there's a lot. Right outside, I'm on the third floor, and I'm not sure it's high enough because I think those things can climb. I mean, alligators do bother me because they're fast. They don't seem to have a conscience, and apparently, if they eat you, they don't eat you right away. They save you. So I mean, you're not getting me. And you see these pictures, I'm sure, all the time of people that golf and then they take a picture of an alligator who's sunbathing. Well, I'm nowhere near that golf course if there's an alligator on it.
I'm very anti-alligator. I'm with you. None of that sounds fun. I think you should stay inside, Dave. I don't know about the climbing thing. I think you're probably safe inside your hotel room. I don't think you have to worry about one climbing up 3 floors and coming in through your balcony. But you should probably leave tonight after the game just to make sure.
Well, let me tell you something. If an alligator tries to climb in my room, I'll just hit him with my room service tray, and that'll fix him.
What else? They also say you're supposed to run diagonal or something. I don't know. I'd probably just. I just don't want to deal with an alligator.
That's also. I love the advice that they say if you see a bear, don't run, stand there and make a lot of noise. I mean, you almost feel like the Bears made up that rule. I mean, come on now. But I get it. Bears and alligators you don't want to fool with.
No, and also sharks, which are kind of those things combined, but in the water. All right, to the basketball, because allegedly that's what we're here to do. We talked on Monday about how the Pistons are some years into their rebuild and it hasn't taken, and then Washington goes out, plays real well. Kyle Kuzma has a fantastic night. Wizards come away with the win. But we were comparing that to the team that they're going to face tonight, the Orlando Magic, who is 12-5 near the top of the Eastern Conference, and a couple years into their rebuild really seems to be onto something. What has gone right for Orlando, and specifically this year? What should Wizards fans be watching for tonight that will make this game fairly difficult?
Well, and again, I think that's encouraging as we leave Detroit. I mean, they're going bananas there in a bad way. I mean, the fan base there in Detroit is saying, wait a minute here. We got Cade Cunningham. We thought, and it still might come. I mean, part of being a fan who is fully invested in your team, it never happens quick enough. Now, Orlando, Jamal Mosley, who's the head coach, I looked it up. His winning percentage is 37%. So they've had a rough year in Orlando, but it feels like, a 7-game winning streak, which is what they have, is a big deal in the NBA because, you can get tripped up by back-to-backs or God knows what happens. So anytime you get above 3 wins, in my opinion, that's significant. And I don't even want to know who they played in those 7 games. And they, by the way, played some quality teams, but They got it going on. And so it's a combination to me, and this is what the Wizards have to do, or any team has to do. You've got to hit it with your draft picks. Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, now this Jalen Suggs. I mean, this is go right down the roster. There's several high first-round picks that they've hit on, and then you get the buy-in. And if you look at the way this Magic team is winning, and it's one thing that scares us tonight, because, look, we established going into the season the Wizards might struggle on the boards. Well, the Magic dominate on the boards, and that's one of the reasons for their success. And they are just, angry bears and alligators on defense, if you will, as they force a lot of turnovers. So, that's a combination that can cause a lot of problems, and it has for opposing teams. So tonight, the Wizards will have to respond to the challenge, and it is about belief. And so why I think this is going to be an entertaining game and test for the Wizards is, look, Friday night against the Milwaukee Bucks, that was a game, as we talked about, that you don't say, well, the Wizards blew it here or there. That was just a game where the best team won on the night because they had 3 more points. But the point I'm saying is the Wizards are showing belief, and why you should say, well, look, that's a positive, that, okay, go into Milwaukee, and believe me, Milwaukee several times in that game is like, why are the Wizards like a piece of duct tape stuck to our shoe? We want to put them away. We want to rest. And we don't want it to be this hard. Instead, the Wizards could have very easily won that game. And that's what has to continue here tonight in Orlando. And I have every belief it will, because, the vibe I am getting from this team is it still is a unit that has a strong leader. Kyle Kuzma came back, and he knew what he signed up for. There was no promise that, all right, we're going to make the playoffs this year. And if you look at the way he's involving his teammates, his assist-to-turnover ratio, his assist numbers, the way he's letting the game come to him, and he's not trying to just put up numbers, he's being a leader both on and off the court, and this team is fighting. Now, obviously, the record shows more often than not it doesn't complete the deal, but here's another night in the NBA.
Yeah, Kyle on the show with us yesterday actually talked about a lot of that, and he talked about how he thinks they should be better record-wise because they've just blown so many games, and it's something that is part of the process, and they hope that they can close out some of these moving forward because they've been way more competitive than a 3-12 record suggests, and we'll see if they can get it right and finish off a one tonight in Orlando. Anything special coming up pregame, halftime tonight, Dave?
Well, Denny Avdia it's going to be great to hear from him because he's part of the surge for this Orlando match. For this, I just traded him for this Washington Wizards team. Denny Avdia, he's along with Bilal Coulibaly and two of the great storylines in my mind right out of the gate of this season is, Denny gets that contract extension, and game in and game out, he is showing the team you made the right call. So we're going to hear from him coming up at halftime. I hope people look. It's a Wednesday night. Hope people check in with us. And, we're going to be doing our best to stay warm here in chilly Florida.
And then you'll leave before the alligators get you. We'll talk to you on Friday. Thanks so much, as always, for the time. And we'll hear from you on the microphone coming up in just over 15 minutes.
Just a few minutes. Thanks so much.
All right, that's Dave Johnson, everybody, with us on a Wizards game day from Orlando. Wizards Magic tonight, 7 p.m. pregame, 6:45, which means we need to wrap up our show. Real things, real people said into real microphones, and a preview of a loaded show tomorrow is next. Wrapping up the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, Thursdays often are a nightmare for us because we don't know what we're going to do. There's a lot of options. We typically don't have a game coming up. So like tomorrow we actually have a full show. And suddenly tomorrow is loaded, bro. Like sometimes we grind so hard to make sure that we're not screwed on Thursday that we wind up with just a sick Thursday show. Yo. Tomorrow's pretty stacked. We got Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. He wrote a big piece on the general manager candidates that are going to be out there. Like pretty comprehensive. Like if someone hires a GM that's not on his list, that'd be pretty crazy because he had like a 40-person list. And he had analytics people, and he had like former scouts, and he had another section of like people who have previously been general managers that could be back in the mix. So there's a lot of candidates out there. And so we're going to talk to Brad about some of the individual candidates, but also like what works in the NFL right now. Because I think one of the things that's interesting about how Brad wrote the piece is he paired each general manager with a head coaching candidate. And he's like, and it's not just like, I think these two guys would be a great fit. It's like, oh, this guy worked with Eric Bieniemy in Minnesota from 2000 whatever to 2000 whatever. So he would be a good fit. Or like Jim Schwartz comes up a lot, the defensive coordinator in Cleveland, because they're like the Detroit connections, and there's a couple people in Cleveland's front office. He's been in Philadelphia, and there's a lot of Philly people on this list. So we'll talk to Brad Spielberger about all of that. We'll also, I think tomorrow, we're taping with Schlereth tomorrow for Take Command. I think we might run that tomorrow because we're going to have Schlereth's broadcast partner, Adam Amin, on Friday. So Schlereth and Amin have the game this weekend on Fox, which is great. It means we get a great call. Well, you guys do. I'll be at the stadium. But if you're watching on TV, you will have those two, which is just an A-plus team. And we'll have those two over the next 2 days. So we'll play the interview with Schlereth. There's a chance we have a commander on or two tomorrow. Working to see if we can figure out the schedule. But that is definitely a possibility. We have our NFL tiers, which need major updating.
Man, there are going to be some teams being moved tomorrow,
We
Craig.
have not done them in 2 weeks, so we need to get some stuff in order. What else? I feel like there's other stuff that I haven't even gotten to.
Rachel.
Talks. Oh, that's right.
Bieniemy
Rachel had a thing. What was the thing that she wanted to do?
Mike McDaniel quotes.
Oh, yeah. So if you listened a couple weeks ago, we did fake Travis Kelce tweets, and we checked to see if Anthony could tell the difference between the real going viral old Travis Kelce tweets and fake ones that my wife wrote, and it was absolutely hysterical. Well, Mike McDaniel, as we're actually about to get to in Real Things, has had some incredible quotes this year. And so Rachel saw one pop up on Instagram and was like, I could do fake quotes and you could test Anthony, and maybe you won't be such a bad game show host this time and he'll actually miss some.
Wow. I mean, you did.
She's not wrong.
Yeah, I was about to say, you did suggest maybe you did a bad job.
Yeah.
Going two. Yeah, so maybe Rachel can help you.
Yeah, I think she should give them to me in order. That way, at the very least, if it's a bad job, it's not my fault. That's not what life's about, kids. Your team. You got to use your strengths, you and your partner, and she's good for the strategy. I'm good for the talking.
Okay.
That's
so you're the muscle, and she's the brains.
Well, I mean, I'm the mouth. She's the brains.
That too, then. Okay.
Yeah, she's got plenty of muscle. Very, very strong.
Oh, yeah, that too.
She can lift a house. It's stupid. Sometimes she lifts weights. I'm just like, how did you do that? It's crazy. But that's the thing.
Put me to shame for sure.
Don't judge people based off how they look. That is a very important lesson for the kids and the adults. Honestly, it's kind of a more important lesson for the adults. Anyway, the point is, it's time for Real Things Real People Said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Speaking of Mike McDaniel, he got hit in the last week. So I caught mic'd up. This is pregame. This is actually 2 weeks ago. He got hit on the sideline, and he was telling the story before last week's game. This courtesy of Inside the NFL on Showtime.
I got drilled last week. I got a bloody shoulder. It was the first play of the game. I thought a defender was going to hit the guy out of bounds, and he missed. And so he ran up on me. He slips out, kicks me in the shoulder, and elbowed me in my manhood. You get it? He just ran out, kicked me in the shoulder. I had to act like it didn't hurt. It hurt like a and I got hit in the so I feel like I'm gonna puke right now.
That sounds terrible.
It does, but if you watch the actual video, he completely plays it off. I
can't
wouldn't know he
believe
was
it.
affected at all.
I like the shoulder is one thing.
Yeah.
I could play off a shoulder.
Yeah.
I could not play off getting hit in the. There's no way. That's too much ouch. You get hit in the. And I'm gonna let out a.
Man,
you weren't ready. That's really honestly that's why I wanted.
I wasn't ready for that one. No.
You weren't ready at all. Who is the best trash talker Jeff Teague ever saw in the NBA? Do I have time to play this?
Yeah, you do.
All right, excellent. Jeff Teague this is a wild podcast. This dude does.
It actually wasn't. It was on the Shams Charania, Lou Williams, whatever their show is.
Okay, it's on Stadium.
Yeah.
Jeff Teague, wild storyteller.
Well, who's the most annoying person you would say that's trash talking on the court?
The most annoying was probably Dennis Schroeder. He was. I know you got a story, Lou.
That's for us. I'm gonna leave that alone. Yeah. Nah. We gonna we gonna leave that alone.
You know it's bad when he's saying one of his teammates. We were looking for a Pat Bev, someone you played against.
Someone
you went with your backup.
He was annoying, man. But I mean, that's what makes him him, man. He's a competitor, but he definitely was annoying.
Did you play against Prime KG?
Oh.
Hey, man, he was crazy.
KG would say
on all fours one time
he
in
would
the
say
playoff
some
game
things
and
to you
barked
on the
at me.
floor.
Wait,
personal.
What? He did what?
Got on all fours and barked at me in the playoff game. I said, dude, crazy. Dude ain't got it out, man.
I have basically heard that there were two guys that were habitual line steppers as trash talkers, and they were KG and Paul Pierce.
Ooh.
And they were together in Boston, and they would there's nothing you could do because KG was turned into an insane person.
Yeah, he was crazy, man.
Not well when he was on the court. Yeah. And he would say stuff that was so absurdly offensive that you just couldn't even respond to it. I really want some of those stories one day. Someday, somewhere, someone will tell them. It'll probably be Jeff Teague on a podcast.
Yep.
Anyway, Wizards basketball is next.